Good morning. My name's Rick. I am an addict, and really grateful to be at We Grow with Love again. It's really an awesome place with awesome people. It all comes together every year. The topic for the workshop, if I can believe a card, is our ultimate authority. It took a while to understand, where this ultimate authority came from. And, as I was looking back at it, it actually, for me, it starts with second step, admitting that there is something outside of myself, that has some power over me. Continues on with third step, that I keep refining and defining and expanding and in the outlook on the power greater in myself. Slowly, from that emerges a higher power. And sometimes it's hard to, that loving, caring, understanding higher power wasn't always with me, wasn't always with me. A lot of times in the depths of disease, I was angry at power that would have me where I was, that, if this power was truly that kind, loving, and understanding being, then what the hell was I doing where I was? And it took a lot of process to progress past that to the understanding that I had, early in recovery, that everything's in its season, and that there are plans out there that maybe I don't need to know, and coming to accept the fact that maybe my perception at the time was clouded a little bit with some thinking that might not be proper, maybe some self-centered thinking, what about me? Why is this happening to me? So this ultimate authority that they talk about in the traditions, for me, it really, it was almost automatically associated early on with a vote. You'd look around, people raise their hands. If there was 12 people and 7 of them said, one thing, then that's what it was, and then, you get into service work and you start, this is a great idea. Why aren't we doing this? And you get into the process of using, this ultimate authority in the group conscience. And, it doesn't always have to do with this, numerical count of hands. My loving, caring, kind, and understanding higher power, and when I'm in that particular setting is where I first started getting the concept of, our higher power, who I choose to call God, and it's a collective higher power, and it is a power. And finding that, that a addict, well, like me, with some, really clear goals can influence, and promote, and push and strive and look at success as only a win, that I need to win this decision so that we can go in the direction that I want us to because it is good. It's a rude awakening. It was a rude awakening for me to understand that because I had a great idea in my head and I thought that it would benefit almost everybody. It doesn't necessarily mean that the group as a conscience that had invited this ultimate authority in to help it with its decisions saw it the same way. If they only understood understood, if they could only look at it from this angle, if they, you know. And in reality, what I was saying is, they don't understand what I'm saying. They don't see what I see. They don't know the needs that I'm seeing that would be met, you know, because it was all about me and how I was thinking at that moment. And you know, going through that process, and, you know, like the traditions start out, you know, about the preamble about it wasn't until I got into service, you know. And now it's so much more, because, you know, that area of recovery that involves other people is about the traditions, you know. The area of recovery that involves me, you know, is about the 12 steps. When I'm dealing with other people, there's usually some traditions involved, and it's only through learning and understanding them that I've been able to, with the growth through the 12 steps, personal growth, alleviate a lot of the things that used to, you know, baffle and confuse and anger me, you know. And when we sit around and reinvent the wheel for the 12th time, you know, and gee, it winds up looking pretty much like the last 12 wheels, but, you know, maybe someone had addressed it a little differently from the concept. We wind up pretty close to where, you know, the concept of our ultimate authority would have us. The last part of that second tradition is interesting, because, you know, most of the traditions are a single sentence, and then here tacked on at the end of the second tradition is that complete sentence, you know, after the ultimate authority is a loving God as he may express himself through group conscience. Period. Capital letter, you know. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. And to me, you know, it's like there was a group conscience, you know, getting the direction we need through prayer and understanding of each other, you know, to this warning, you know, this cautionary tale. And it wasn't until I started delving into the history of Narcotics Anonymous and our predecessors that, you know, the importance of that part of the second tradition actually made itself apparent, you know, because that guy with 15 years that's been sitting as, you know, some kind of trusted servant at whatever level of service for 2/3 or 3/4 of those, he doesn't have the direction. He does not have the answers. He has a perspective. And through this process of asking an ultimate authority, you know, what happens for me is that, you know, then we have to address and look at and consider the perspectives that group is made up of, you know. And for whatever reason, I've always had a problem with someone that says we're doing this because I say so. You know, we're doing it because I think it's right. And only in recovery have I been able to realize that, you know, well, I have the issues when it's reversed, you know, that things, you know, would go better if you people only understood that I have a better idea. And it's not right. It's the tradition helps me understand, you know, that the self-centered part of my disease will crop up and just take my attitude out in a second, air it out for public to see, you know, for the whole wide world. And when I am spiritually centered and not self-centered, then I'm truly grateful for the ability that we have to sit down, you know, about whatever it is we need to make a decision about, and have some discussion, and, you know, regardless of anyone changing a viewpoint through that whatever length of discussion we have, and then inviting, you know, our collective higher power, our ultimate authority, to help influence this decision. But it's as he may express himself, you know. And I have to keep that in mind. Here we have this way to grow as a group, a way to make decisions as a group. And then I'll sit in a meeting at work, and, you know, someone will say something incredibly stupid, you and 3 people are asking them, why, on this particular decision. And there's 6 people at the meeting. I think we're approaching a group conscience, and it gets back down to because I said so, without consideration of outside perspective. And generally what happens is that particular decision has to be revisited, hopefully before anything catastrophic happens, And the process we have is much more simpler, And even with that, I come out saying, well, if there's 12 people, we got to have 7 votes, It's a group conscience. It's like, in my home group, they always allow, after 15 people take a group conscience, but anyone could ask for it at any time, let's split the meeting. There's a lot going on here, a lot of people here, And with those group consciences, there's 45 people in the room and 6 people raise their hand to go out into another room or outside, and no one raises their hands, telling them that they don't want them to split the meeting. And, like out of the 6 people that raise their hands, 2 of them sit at the table when everyone gets up, and, it winds up with 10 or 15 people leaving the room. And, it's amazing because, usually, and it had been me for quite a while, it's like, what are you people doing? 4 people out of 45 isn't a group conscience, Well, the group conscience was decided, and the action is happening, because it's spiritually based. These people feel more comfortable sharing in their recovery and helping others and getting what they need, So it's not about everyone, close your eyes and raise your hands and count and 1 more and half and all that, The ultimate authority in my life today lets me know in pretty, obvious feelings and results, and, whether it's practical, whether the result's practical, that, I had an influence there. It wasn't me, and it sure wasn't, these other crazy addicts that are sitting down with me trying to do something, We had an influence here, and I'm grateful for that today, And I see the results in all areas of my life when I can practice these principles, And when we sit at work, and part of my responsibility is to lay plans out, and here's the steps we're going to take. And, it's really funny because usually that process starts with the identification of a problem, and it continues with identification of a need for change, a request for help in making that change because other people have done it before me and I might as well get their experience, and to see that, that corollary in real life of what I've been through in recovery, and then taking it with the traditions and trying. When I have that recognition, I have the ability to correlate my recovery into real life, that's just, to me, it's the benefit, it's the fruit of the labors, and it helps me. But I didn't teach this by myself, I wasn't in a little room with a flashlight and some instructions, and everyone that's sitting here has something to do with my ability to have the perspective I have today. And for that, I'm grateful, and I want to thank each and every one of you because I couldn't do this by myself. That's all I got.
This time I'd like to introduce our second speaker. Her name is Bonnie C.
Hi, I'm Bonnie, and I'm an addict. I've been really thinking about this topic this morning on this ultimate authority, and Mark always asks me, do a workshop, yeah, and what do you want to talk about? I don't care. And so he yesterday let me know that this was the workshop that I was going to do, and I've been thinking about it. And it's funny because our area, the elections are coming up, and so I've been reading up on my second tradition and the fourth concept, and because it talks a lot about choosing our trusted servants. And so it was kind of coincidental to me that, he had picked this topic. I'd like to say, you know what, if you really want to know what Narcotics Anonymous has to say about an ultimate authority, read your second tradition, and I could just come up here and read the book, and that'd be great, but I guess when I'm asked to share, I'm asked to share of myself and my experience and what I've learned here, I know that before I got here, and a long time after I was here, and still sometimes today, I can be my own ultimate authority. And it never works out, ever, And through the process of working the steps, I have found an ultimate authority in my life. And I was thinking about those words, ultimate authority, ultimate. I was trying to find a word greater than ultimate, and I couldn't come up with one. To me, ultimate, that's it. Ultimate, doesn't get any better than that. And I was thinking about authority, authorized, So I guess for me, my higher power is my ultimate authority. It's the stream authorized to take care of my will and my life for me, And that trust has developed through working the steps, through not really believing things are going to work out, but trusting that they will, and then watching them do. What I share about is me and what works for me, and I believe the understanding that I have of God today is that God don't make me do nothing. I'm presented with choices, and all of those choices have consequences, and that, what, God has a plan for me, but doesn't force me to live that plan. I still can choose to do whatever it is that I want to do. And you know what? Along with that comes the consequences of it. And I don't always follow that plan. Because, hell, I don't even know what the damn plan is, I don't believe that it was God's plan for me to use all those years. I don't believe it was part of God's plan for me to get to the bitter ends. Those were the choices that I made. And I went through a period of my recovery where, I blamed God for the life that I had. That if, God really wanted me, I wouldn't have had this life. And it took time, and it took working those steps. It took doing a 4-step inventory and sharing it with my sponsor to accept that personal responsibility. That God didn't do this to me, my parents didn't do this to me, my husband didn't do this to me, my children didn't do this to me, society didn't do this to me, I did this to me, And that's when I was able to get in the solution. Once I figured out what the problem was, then I could get in the solution. So it wasn't about God's going to fix me, my family's going to fix me, my children are going to fix me, society's going to fix me. You know what? I'm going to fix me, but I'm going to need some help, And I still have to make that choice on a daily basis that I don't want to live like that anymore, so that I can come here and be open to a different way of living. And that's what I learned from all of you, a different way of living. I was reading again this morning. I remembered that my book was in the car, and so I read through that second tradition today. And, it talks so much about allowing this ultimate authority in our group conscience. I have the greatest home group in the whole world. I was the ultimate authority of that home group for a while. That didn't work out either, But it talked about being willing to hear that expression, And I remember when I was new and a home group. Okay, my first home group was the first meeting that says, anyone wants to sign up for a home group, here's a sheet, and I took it as a personal invitation. And it wasn't until I got with a sponsor and started talking to a sponsor about what is a home group. And she explained it was a place to call home, and it was a place to make a commitment. You're going to be there every week unless there's a death, and it should be your own. And, get the group booklet, read about it. So I get the group booklet, and I read about it. And what stuck out to me is about a meeting being an event and a group being an entity, a living, breathing thing. And that's what I wanted to be a part of. And so then there was the commitment end. So let's pick a home group that's close to home, because we live in the north and it snows and weather can get horrible, and let's not use that as an excuse. Let's pick a group that's close to home. And so I found the only meeting in Mishawaka, and I decided I was going to make that my group. And I remember when I first started going that group, there was like 6 or 7 people, and that was it in this group. And we'd have these little group business meetings, and all it was we'd count the money, say what we're going to buy in literature, and that was the end of it. And then when we finally decided to make a group, that we're going to take this meeting, and 5 of us were going to call ourselves a group, and we were going to take ownership of this meeting and responsibility of it. And we changed the name. It was called the Newcomers Meeting, and we changed it to Lean On We. And I decided I wanted to be the secretary. You know, it was the only position I really had any clean time that I could deal with. You know, I didn't know anything about area service to be a GSR. I had less than a year. I had no business taking any group money. So secretary, open, closing meeting, I could do that. And what was really cool to me is that the secretary got to run the little group business meeting. And so now I get to go in there and we sit down and I say we're going to open with a prayer. They balked at me. What do you mean we're going to open with a prayer? We just got to count the money in the literature. Well, you know what? I'm chairing this service meeting, and we're going to open with a prayer. And then I made them read something out of the group booklet. They didn't like that either. But you know what? I kind of forced myself upon that until it became an accepted thing in our group today. When we have a group service meeting, it doesn't matter who's chairing. We open with a prayer. We read something. We invite that loving, caring, higher power in to influence our decisions, you know. And yeah, it did start with some self-will, but, you know, you people taught me about self-will. 9 out of 10 times I'm going to run on self-will. But, you know, I do have this awesome ultimate authority in my life today that's going to take that and turn it to God's will. So that's what enables me to trust making decisions today. Trust to be able to make mistakes, because this ultimate authority is going to come in and turn everything to God's will anyways. You know, I think about this convention. This taught me about self-will, because I remember everybody saying, oh, that convention was self-willed, and I heard the story about how they come out here and started on their own and they owed all this money, and then this place said, hey, you know, we loved you people, come back every year, we don't care about the money that you owed us. To me, that was an example of an ultimate authority taking what people called self-will and turning it into God's will. You know, so I'm learning today to trust in that, to allow, you know, this is the first time I haven't had a key to my home group, and learning how to let that go. That, you know what, God's going to open that meeting, whether I'm there or not. But you know what, I'm there. You know, I feel good to say that in 5 years I've missed the meeting 6 times, you know, because I show up. That's what I got to do. I got to show up and be a part of it. And we've got these elections coming up, and you know, the problem with traditions is, like, when the first time I read through them and I started studying them, I thought they were to teach me to show you how to behave. And it took some hard knocks to learn that the traditions were so I would know how to behave in the group setting, you know. But I had to, you know, piss a few people off, push them around, and tell them how to live before I learned that, you know. And I still can fall on that today. I can use those traditions to judge you, and judge you harshly, because you're not living by what I believe. You know, I read the literature and I see this beautiful image of this fellowship and program of people who aren't living like that anymore and loving each other and caring and, you know, all this. And then sometimes I look around and that's not what I'm seeing, you know. But I know that they're not about me making that happen. The only way I can make that happen is to live them in my own life. It's not about making other people live them. And so anyways, our area has been kind of a little bit of a mess. In my opinion, it's been a little bit of a mess. But you know what? God is in charge. I have the sponsor who used to tell me, God wins. You think, what the hell does that mean, God wins? Well, you know what? Every day in my life I see that. God does win. Doesn't matter how much I screw things up, God wins, because at the end of the day, I can still crawl in my bed and feel good in my skin. You know? And that's what this is about for me today, is being able to live in my skin and be okay with who I am, and live and learn and make mistakes and carry on. And, you know, I think that if this was the ideal world, a loving God would always be invited into every group conscience, and no votes would ever be needed, and everything would come to this unanimity, or however you say that word. But we're human, and we're people, and you know what, sometimes I do want my way. It talks about, in that tradition, about no matter how well-intentioned we are, how we think that, we can solve all the problems, And I have to remember, NA doesn't need me to defend it, NA speaks for itself. All these people out here trying not to live like that anymore. And we all get better at our own pace, or our own willingness. I decided, I hit 5 years this year, and a lot of people talk about that 5-year mark. And so what I decided is, I just got a new sponsor because my sponsor moved away, and I've been sitting on my ass, and it's time to start with step one. Let's get some ammunition against that 5-year mark, because I'm not unique. That's one thing all of you have taught me, is I'm not unique. And so let's start with step one again. Let's at least, if 5 years is going to be a bitch, because it's a bitch for a lot of other addicts, let's at least get something going on with it. But I do trust in God today. I guess what I trust in God is that no matter what happens, I'm okay. I'm okay. Sometimes life sucks. Sometimes it's going to hurt. 90%, 99% of what happens in my life is consequences from the choices that I made. I'm beyond being that victim of what other people did to me. And NA got along long before I got here. And if I leave, it's going to get along long after I leave here. But I'd rather just be a part of it, When we have our little moment of silence before meetings, when I'm in conscious contact with God, I do pray and ask, let me hear something. If you got something for me to share, let me share that. And it works out well when I do invite that loving higher power in. It does work out well. And what's funny is I don't realize until I haven't done it. Things are all screwed up, and it's like, well, Bonnie, where did you invite God in today? I didn't take that moment. And that's why my belief is that, God gave me free will, and I have choices. And when I don't choose to invite God in, there's a difference in my day than when I do choose. My ultimate authority doesn't tell me how to live my life, but when I ask for help, it puts that help there. And if I choose that help, then things do get better. And it's all through working the steps, you people. I'm just really grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be a part of this fellowship, and I'm grateful that there's a program for me to work in my life today. I think I've run out of things to say because my mind is just really going blank. I read this morning, and I wanted to get the book and highlight all these great things I read and just come up here and share the book with you rather than share myself with you. I guess, real briefly, I just had a grandson. I got to watch the birth of a baby. That was the most awesome thing I ever saw in my life. All my children were C-section, and to be able to be a part of this was really, really great. But, it's not the best circumstances. My son is 19, this girl's 15, But everything's going to be all right. What do? You start buying onesies and diapers, My other son, our youngest, just turned 18, and he's disabled, and I really want to get him the hell out of the house because I think he'll do better without me, and I need to get off my butt and work on that, We just found out the landlady wants to sell the house. We don't want to buy it, and we're going to have to move again, and I don't want to move again this summer, so I'm going to have to do that. There's a lot going on in my life that I could really focus and be on that pity pot. And you know what? I think sometimes if I feel sorry enough for myself, you'll feel sorry for me too. But luckily, you taught me about the gratitude, because there's a lot of good going on in my life as well. I got the last 10 days off of work, and I was a little bit worried about the money. And then this other opportunity, it's funny how God works, because, okay, we get this notice that we're going to move, and this realtor calls to hook up to come see our house that the woman booked with, and she cancels and changes to another day, and I can't go that day because I got to clean houses with a friend. Oh, you clean houses? I got a house I need to be cleaned. So it turns out through all this that I ended up getting work next week to make some money to make up for the 10 days off of work that I got. And, if I really sit back and let God be in charge, it does. I mean, I have to do my part. But if I let God be in charge, it really does work out. And it's hard sometimes because, I lived a lot more of my life not trusting, And for me, faith and hope and trust, well, it's hope and faith and trust. And to me, hope is wanting to believe, and faith is coming to believe, and trust is putting that belief in action. And that means just putting one foot in front of the other, regardless of the circumstance. Just put one foot in front of the other, Anyways, I'm really grateful to be here, and I'm glad you're all here, and hope that I'll get some time with all of you this weekend. That's all I got.
Okay. Before we open the floor for sharing, I need to remind everyone that you are being taped. If you wish not to be taped, please let us know so that the tape can be turned off. Right now, we'll open the floor for sharing. So if anyone has a burning desire to share, please feel free to come up and share.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bryant, and I am an addict. And I'm the note taker. I'm a part of Bonnie's group, home group, and it is a very, very special people. And it's not a bad thing to say that it's an extension of Bonnie, but Bonnie has taught me that there is a time when you give up the keys and you turn it over. And there's a whole bunch of other things that Bonnie has taught me. Over 2.5 years I've been listening to this woman, and I can tell you that she cares deeply about this fellowship, and she also cares about her sponsees, and it's my opinion too that men should stay with men and women should stay with women, and there's a reason why. We're all adults, and it gets into that consenting adult thing, but my opinion is that some of us need time to recover, and we need that opportunity to recover, because once the desire is taken away by that ultimate authority, whom I refer to as my teacher and God, they're one and the same, well, then we got these other addictions going on. And one by one, when we address them in the same fashion, they can be removed. I'm not talking about perfection. I'm just talking about being better today and feeling better, like Bonnie says, in my own skin. So I don't feel all funky. I don't feel like my skin's crawling. I'm not up here to give a mini lead or anything like that. Because the great thing is there's two things that I like talking about, and that is that ultimate authority. And he doesn't look anything like me, okay? And also, on top of that, and I got a driver's license to prove it. I used to get these people coming up and saying, "Man, you look like that rock star." I said, "Hey, I got a bank account and a driver's license. It ain't me, okay?" And the other thing is somebody else. And it's pointing fingers saying, you know what? That person assisted me in making and having me, because that's really a bad thing to say, they made me. But helping me see things in myself that I could work on to make me feel better about me. And I'll tell you what, I could probably start a riot by saying love, relationships, and in recovery, because I'm telling you, I've done that recently in our area, and I've had a couple people actually want to throw down on me. And it's like, dude, didn't you ever listen to the Beatles? And it's like, well, what reality are you living in? It's like, well, one that I was hoping that I could meet somebody that was open and honest and ain't gonna play no games with me and I wasn't going to play any games with them, and we both could stay clean. But if I don't have the time to back it up, I don't have I lost my integrity because I lost my clean time. And that's me beating hell out of me. That's me not forgiving me. It's not that I forgot what I learned in 2.5 years. Today, I work a workbook over there, and I can get real expansive. But for me, what it is respect. And to get it, you got to give it. Love. To get it, you got to give it. I didn't know until recently that loving kindness was one word. Who knew? Understanding. Well, you see, if you're not willing to give as much as you're willing to take, you throw the whole thing out of balance. And that's where I think that, like, a guy named Billy would say, you're battling for the ultimate state of control. And for me, I don't want to battle with anybody anymore. I'm at peace. I was getting so frisky because I was so angry, because I was carrying around so much baggage. It didn't have nothing to do with this fellowship. It had to do with some stuff that was going on with a trial situation with an ex-wife and a drug-addicted son, and on and on and on. And I got closure. And when the closure came, because I had addicts say, man, dude, you've got to stay out of that hurricane. You keep going out there and stirring it up. I'm sitting there going, no, you see, you don't understand. I've got to go into the hurricane. I've got to twist it up. I know where the piece is. That's in the eye. But when I get the closure, because I've been crying for so long in the middle of the night by myself in a fetal position, asking my God to bring me some justice. Because those psychiatrists were wrong. They never listened to me. I told them I was a drug addict. Oh, they wanted to label me with this and that and this and that. Their labels hurt. And then I had to carry that out into life. And you know what it's like to be told that you are the ultimately mentally ill person? Because when they hit me with that tag, it was like, do I look like Charles Manson to you? For real. And that's how I felt inside. And I felt like other people were looking at me like that. And I thought, you know what, I'm really a nice guy. Now, on the other hand, don't back me into a corner. On the other hand, don't touch somebody I love, because that's already been expressed. Well, here today, it's like a real peaceful situation. I have witnessed love today. It's so calm and so cool, and we're around a lot of people. People like Bonnie taught me that. They really did. And people like Bob. And we are special people, but we're all special people. And love is colorblind, isn't it? That's all I got.
I'm an addict. My name's Derek. Once upon a time, there was a man who seemingly had everything in life. And he went on an elaborate cruise with his family, and the boat shipwrecked, and he ended up on this deserted desert island all by himself. And right before he nearly froze and starved to death, he figured out how to begin the process of surviving. And he learned how to go out and find food, and how to fish, and how to build himself shelter and make fire, keep himself warm, and make clothes out of the grasses and the animal skins that he made. And he was out hunting one day, and there was a electrical storm, and lightning had hit his hut and burned it to the ground. And he came back, and he's like, God, after everything that I've been through, you've taken away my family, you've taken away my life, now you take away my home. And about an hour later, here come a rescue boat. He said, we saw your SOS signal, and we're here. You never know how God is going to work. And we question the process. And, like Rick was talking, his idea, and some other people that I've known, their ideas that they bring to Narcotics Anonymous because they want this fellowship to be better. I have to ask myself, is God working through Rick? Is that the message that we were supposed to get, is what he brought to the group, that they said, no, we're not going to do that? You know, is that the message that God brought to Bonnie when she came to the group with her idea and said, this is what I want you to do, and then the group said, no, we're not going to do that? 3 principles that are indispensable are honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. And I know if I'm not open-minded to the idea that everybody has something valuable to give to this fellowship, then I'm going to miss it. And I may never be given the opportunity to have God work in my life miraculously like the man on the island, you know, but I may end up being the man on the island, you know. The final authority rests with the NA groups, and each group has one ultimate authority, you know. And that's the thing that I try to stay away from judgmentalism, but I'm a human being and I'm an addict, and I'm also who I am, and so I can't completely, but people that don't think the way I do are merely different than me and not the enemy. And people that I don't think the same way that they do, I'm just different from them too, you know. And there's no reason why, because we perceive something differently, that we don't still have the same degree of love and caring and hope for each other, because I believe that we do. And yeah, our area is going through some serious growing pains right now, has been for some time, and I realize over this last year as the area chair that we're learning how to go out and gather and survive, because we need to, because the lightning storm's going to hit and the rescue's going to happen, and our area is going to become strong again. And the experience that we accumulate in this process, not only is it going to bring back the people who have the experience in the areas that we need them to have their experience in, it's going to attract the newcomer, but it's going to make this message that we're carrying to these addicts that still suffer, myself included, and the ones that haven't got here yet included, that this program works. You know, and we can reinvent the wheel 12 times, like Rick alluded to. But it doesn't matter, because it's still going to be a wheel. You know, and by definition, a wheel is round and it rolls. You know, and it doesn't matter what you make it look like. It's still going to serve that function. You know, so no matter what we make Narcotics Anonymous look like, it's still going to serve that function, to carry the message to the addict who still suffers, because people are dying. You know, but on a positive note, people are living, and we're all proof of that, and that's why I'm grateful to be here.
It's been years since I've had any opportunity like this, actually, or have gone out and enjoyed myself with such nice people. I'll just go ahead and let you know right now, my husband, Ron Johnson, passed away 9 months ago from cirrhosis, and I haven't quite been myself. We didn't use, but I've been using since he passed away, and I've stopped. I've stopped for right now, okay, for now. Hasn't been long, almost a couple of weeks, and I came up with Shannon. I'm from South Bend, And I have a little closure with Ron's passing away. We have a beautiful lot together, so I'll be buried there also, and be getting a headstone before too long for the both of us. One sad thing, beautiful funeral at St. Anthony's. All his old-time friends came, and rock and rollers, and Ron was an excellent guitar player. And in fact, last night it sounded really good. It was very good to hear the guitars playing. I hadn't heard the music in so long. And but his friends, all his high school friends and friends, from what I hear and from what I understand, after the funeral, went to the bar and drank. Knowing Ron had died of cirrhosis, here they go out, you know. So that was kind of sad in me. I thought that wasn't very good of them. But that's that, you know, people will do that. This is good conversation, good people. I need this very much in my life. I've missed this in the last 9 months, or maybe a few years actually. We went to meetings, but well, to be honest, AA meetings, and going on about a month, I suppose, a little less than a month now. But I'm, the contact, you know, with the people is incredible. It really is. It's amazing. It's a main line that you can't, it's a function, or whatever I'm trying to say. It's just that line you have between each other, ourselves, that is just so incredible. You know, we care. We really care about one another, about ourselves, and about each other, and I'm very overwhelmed. I believe I'm overwhelmed by it all right now, or a little bit. And I think it's just wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And I'm very glad to be here. And I'll be enjoying talking with you folks and get to know one another. And I've been isolating myself for so long, staying at home, and it's different, you know, being around people and being outside, but I'm really going to enjoy it. Thank you so much for having me, too. Okay? Thank you.
I don't know if this is going to be a clean message or a sick message, but you gotta dump it, right? Miss Kathleen thanked me for bringing her here, and I had no, it wasn't Shannon, because, you know, I got nominated, so gotta do service work. I tend to bring people down here every year, and that's because I don't want to be alone. Has nothing to do with doing service work. I have attempted sponsoring people, And I know that we can't keep people clean. We don't have that much authority. We're supposed to be there to help people. And I said recently, I ain't doing that shit no more. Because every time somebody leaves, they take part of you with them. So I took it upon myself to say my niche is just driving people to meetings and doing some type of service work, area level, whatever. I'm tired of helping people. And as soon as it comes out your mouth, you know it's the wrong thing to say. But somebody told me early on, everybody's got their own little niche. And maybe mine's just driving. Because I've been sponsored by people where they show you the love and they caress your back and tell you everything's going to be okay. And I've been sponsored by people that kick me in my ass when I need it. And everybody has their own little personality. It's kind of like raising kids. You can't raise them all the same because everybody's got their own little thing. And maybe I'm too strong on the ones that need the nurturing, and I'm really babyish on the ones that need their ass kicked. And the last 3 sponsees left and decided to go back out there and get some more pain. And then when I asked Derek what the topic was, the ultimate authority is not me. So, therefore, they need to do what they got to do, and I'll just be here if they come back. And I guess I need to share that because I'm finding myself getting in that little isolation. I only go to a couple meetings a week now. I'm not doing the meetings I used to do. I'm in my own little crew, and work and my personal business is taking priority, and all I'm doing is easing my way out. So, maybe God just wanted me to be alone for a little bit to work on me, and I quit doing that too. So, I need this weekend. This is my weekend. I get my rejuvenation. I get all the hugs. And in our area, man, I guess it's anywhere I go. If you're around long enough, you get to know people too close, and then you start seeing their weaknesses and their faults. And it don't matter if it's our area or anywhere. And I guess I like coming here because we don't really show our weaknesses and our faults. It's all love and good stuff. It ain't the he say, she say shit. And it's not that we're phony. It's just our true love comes out here. And I take this with me and I try and be nice and I get that glow for a while. And then I get irritated and I start being a bitch again. And I wish we had this twice a year so I could, Anyway, that's all I got.
Hi, family. I'm an addict. My name is Lisa. Grateful to be here and grateful to be here clean. It's kind of an interesting thing, the ultimate authority, as he may express himself. And I believe that we take the traditions, we learn them here, and then we have to take them outside. And I remember somebody telling me a long time ago, is like the steps is about growth within us, and then the traditions were about growth within the group. And now traditions are about growth with others, not just in Narcotics Anonymous. And it's kind of funny because I'm going through a thing with my daughter who's 15. She's hormonal. She's going through the change, whatever it is that is going on within her. And so she decided she wanted to stay out, after dark, and she didn't call, but she's 15 and she's my kid, and so I'm having this conversation with her and I'm telling her that there's a higher authority. And when you go to school, the teachers are the higher authority, the principal and those administrators are the higher authority. When you get out and go to work, your supervisor, your manager, your boss is the higher authority. And in this house, I'm the higher authority. But in the moment of sharing that, I didn't think about the ultimate authority. I was thinking about the higher authority. And what has happened in that relationship is that the ultimate authority has come in and brought us back together because I prayed and I went to meetings and I shared, and the group conscious gave me suggestions and helped me to get a better perspective on my life. You know what I'm saying? Just like it talks about in Just for Today. And I was able to humble myself, because that's what happens, because I have been involved in service since I had 17 days clean. I have 11 and a half years now. So like I've been service on every level, phone lines, secretary, convention chair, and all that stuff in between, and so, I know about, my opinion matters some places, but some places it's not about my opinion, or just because I have such experience, strength, and hope on this particular situation, it doesn't mean that I'm the ultimate authority. And like it says, humility is the ideal state for the recovering addict. And when I don't accept my assets as well as my liabilities, and my liability being my need to control everything, and I want to control the outcome, when I forget those things, I forget that there is an ultimate authority that expresses itself through a collective experience. You know what I'm saying? And I don't just work steps, I work traditions as well. So it's just about like surrender. It says we surrender quietly, So what that means is that I don't have to, be boisterous with my opinion, not just in my home, but in the group level. There's something going on in our area right now. And I'm one of those people that believe, we can sit on the sidelines and bitch about what's going on. But if we really want to make a difference, we need to get involved. And, I believe in the spirit of rotation. So like the convention committee in my area is putting on this basketball tournament, and they're like charging $20 a person, and you got to have 7 people on the team without question, and you got to have 1 woman, 1 newcomer, and we're thinking 140, and there's no money in the pot, So I said, what's the incentive for wanting somebody to pay $140? So I'm like, now I'm talking to my sponsee sisters. Now I'm talking to my sponsor. Now I'm sharing it with other addicts. So like now because I have a strong personality, now I got a whole rally of us, you know what I'm saying? $140 is too much. Now I'm talking to the referees who are addicts. They're going to be reffing the game. It happens next Saturday. And I'm saying, well, you ref everywhere. How much is the going rate? And they say, well, for a fundraiser, maybe you pay $5 or $10, something like $70 sounds cool, and then why does the newcomer have to pay? And like, it's going to happen the way God wants it to happen. We surrender quietly. But I think, that I know a better way. And I remember I was fundraising chair. And we changed it in our area from fundraising to fundraising. And I'm like, this is fundraising, not fundraising. And so, I want to take my experience, strength, and hope, and I had made a decision. I'm going to go to the convention committee. Now, I am removed from that part of service because I think once I've been the chair of the convention, I just need to sit down and let somebody else do it. Somebody else has the experience. But of course, I think I know. So I'm going to go to the convention committee meeting, and I'm going to make my point known, because none of you were on the committee more than 2 years. And so you guys don't know. I was on the committee for 9 years, so of course I think that I know, but there is an ultimate authority that is in place. And if that fundraiser is supposed to go right, if it's supposed to be successful, God, the ultimate authority, will express himself and let that thing happen. And I have to remove myself from that particular situation, And instead of bitching and moaning about it, maybe I'll show up and support it. Maybe I'll get involved in that particular function. And I have made a decision that is what I'm going to do, But so many times, I think about being the higher authority, and I forget that it's the ultimate authority. Another thing in my home group, we don't have very many home group members that still come to the meeting or that support. And like getting people to be involved in area service is like pulling eye teeth. You know what I'm saying? You know, we all want to talk about what the area is not doing, and you know, it's this thing, and you know, in our area, it's like the convention is mostly black people, in our area service mostly white people, and you know, oh well, and then it gets to be this polarity. You know what I'm saying? It's one extreme or the other. You know, and like we forget the first tradition. You know, about unity and coming together in the common welfare. So I'm in my home group. And we want to implement a thing like in some areas, they have a break, you know, because we have people in the meeting moving in and out, you know, going to get coffee. And then it's a big ass line for coffee while the meeting's going on. And like some weeks we have discussions. So people are trying to share about how they feel. And it's 20 people moving around. So we implement the break, you know. So it was my ideal to bring the break. And then there's this other woman, and she's got like 19 years clean, and she didn't like it. And so in the group conscience that we prayed before we met, there is like this power struggle between me and her. And because I am who I am, you know, with this strong personality, and she's got a strong personality, but hers is kind of insidious. You know, it's just quietly harmful, you know. So she, you know, because then she want to beat me with the book, but because I study literature, I beat her ass right back, you know. So like there's these other two people, one is a newcomer and one is a newcomer to service, and like they're looking around and they're looking at us like, it looks like ping pong, you know. I say something, she say something, I say something, she says something, you know, and it's just crazy. But it talks about inviting, you know, God, you know, into this group conscious and allowing him, you know, to, or her, if that's what you choose, you know, to be the ultimate authority and not about me and my personality. Because it talks about like, you know, you get involved in a group and like the group will shape take the personality of its leader. You know what I'm saying? And so since I'm just strong and dominant as I am, you know, I wanted to go like me. And then I like, you know, project it as, you know, this is my home. And I don't want anybody disrespecting my home. So you guys aren't going to disrespect us in here. And we're going to promote the atmosphere of recovery, you know. And like, I think, you know, then I say, you know, because I got clean time and sometimes I'm the person in the meeting with the most time, you know, which is sad to me. But then I say, well, you know, it's my responsibility, you know, as the more experienced member to show you, you know, the group, how the meeting is supposed to flow, you know. And it's about that second tradition. It's about the first tradition, you know, because am I thinking about the common welfare, you know? Am I thinking about unity, you know? I'm thinking about separatism, you know, between us with time and those without time. And that's just not what it's about. And so I'm just talking about things that, you know, require an ultimate authority, you know, especially in service. And then we take that out into our business world and we learn that in the boardroom, we don't have to be the ultimate authority. And then we take it into our home. And even though we might be the higher authority in the house, we're not the ultimate authority. Thanks for letting me share.
My name is Gerald. I'm a grateful recovering addict. You know, this is something that really kind of touched me. I was sitting there thinking, ultimate authority. See, I've been going through a couple of things for the last couple of months, and in my life, it has been kind of throwing me for a loop, and I didn't know what to do about it, or what to say, how to say it, or anything else between my significant other, like a relationship. And I always thought that I had the final say-so, to where I'm finding out today I'm wrong. I can say something, and I can say it's spiteful. I can say it that makes it hurt. I could have people say things to me that actually hurt, when it hurts me, I want to lash back out at them. And I found out today that I don't have to do that. What the sister said, when you surrender and sit back quietly, everything works out. I'm finding out that's very true. On the way down here, me and a brother was talking about different things that I found out that I hadn't totally surrendered yet. But this is my first time up here, and it's lovely. I'm learning to be able to sit back and relax. I find out today I don't have to worry about things. I used to worry about a lot of things. I didn't so much worry about the big things that were going on, because I noticed that the big things would always take care of themselves. It was always the little things that would always get me. And I'd always let the little things build up, build up, build up, and then it became something major, and then that's when I would explode. Today I don't explode no more. I just stand back and tell my higher power, lead me in a direction to take care of this. He shows me how to take care of things. I had a scenario a couple of days ago that I just went through, that I was out traveling and I found something that I took to work, cleaned up, made up, fixed up, made it look like brand new. And I was struggling with myself whether to give this to another person or keep it for myself. And I sat back, thought about it, told myself, if I give this to this person, am I giving it to them looking for something in return? Am I giving it to them because I want them to have it? I sat back and asked my higher power, what should I do? Today, he gave me an answer. He said, give it to them. You have an overabundance of things. Why be selfish and keep this for yourself, and this other person is something that they need? Don't be spiteful. Don't be hateful. Don't be greedy. Give it to them. And whether you think they need it or not, give it to them freely. So that's what I'm going to do when I get back home. I'm going to just give it to them and tell them, have a nice day, and keep on stepping. So in my life today, I am one of the higher powers, but there's someone greater than me that I have to listen to. Because if I don't listen to him, I'm going to mess everything up. I have the tendency to try to sabotage my life. And I'm good at doing that. But if I sit back and pray to my higher power, he gives me the answer, and he leads me in a direction to take care of what I need to take care of for myself. Thank you.